Good evening. We would love to welcome you to the FIDM, the Business of Denim panel as we explore the denim industry tonight, led by moderator Eriksen Mitchell, who's a FIDM grad and an expert in the denim industry, as well as our denim alumni from the Business of Denim degree and their experience in the denim industry, Rianne Wong, Faith Ibram, Eric Schulenberg, and Dom Gomez. Eriksen Mitchell has a career in the apparel industry that spans over a decade. He specializes in denim products. He started at Element Skateboards. He worked for 5 years at Guess as a product development specialist and then a senior manager. He then served as a senior product development manager at Seven of All Mankind, returning to Guess in a senior leadership position next as their associate director in the denim development division. He graduated with the Associate of Arts degree from FIDM in Merchandise Product Development and an Advanced Associate of Arts degree in International Manufacturing and Product Development. Panelist Dom Gomez currently serves as the Product Development Manager at Citizens of Humanity. Prior, he was the Product Development Assistant at LIBERTINE. He's collaborated with brands such as Nike, AllSaints, and LOVESTITCH. He also is a FIDM grad with an Associate of Arts degree in Apparel Industry Management, an Advanced Associate of Arts degree in International Manufacturing and Product Development, and an Advanced Associate degree in the Business of Denim. Faith Ibram is a designer and product developer at her independent brand. She has industry's collaborations with Guess, Lucky, Chalik, Converse, Red Bull, ISCO, HBO, and the Ellen MacArthur Foundation. She graduated FIDM with a bachelor's degree in business management, associate of arts degree in fashion design, an advanced associate of arts degree in both international manufacturing and product development and the business of denim. Panelist Aaron Schulenberg has served as an associate designer at Land's End and on the product development team at Goldsign, a woman's design label. Currently, she serves as the associate designer in Target Denim division. She graduated with an Advanced Associate of Arts degree in the Business of Denim from FIDM and a Bachelor in Textile and Fashion Design from the University of Wisconsin in Madison. Rianne Wong, panelist, has designed and developed products for companies including Halston, ModCloth, Alice and Olivia Jeans, and has collaborated with brands such as Guess, Uniqlo, Levi's, Red Bull, HBO, and was ISCO's iSchool International finalist. She graduated from FIDM with a bachelor's degree in business management, an associate of arts degree in merchandise product development, an associate advanced degree in international manufacturing and product development, and an advanced associate of arts in the business of denim. Eriksen, I would love to turn it over to you.
Thank you, Amanda. I appreciate it. You made me sound so old. Over 10 years, a decade. Such a strong word. Everyone else, if you'd like to turn on your cameras, we can begin this panel conversation. Nice to see you guys again. Some of you I just met for the first time. Others, I probably annoyed you while we worked together at Guess on some very exciting denim sustainability projects. So I'm just going to open up just a general conversation. This question is kind of really for everyone. So maybe Dom, if you want to start. But the question is, basically, can you talk about your denim experience and kind of what brought you into this crazy, lovely, chaotic, inspiring, challenging industry of denim?
Right. Of course. So for me, and I always feel like it's a little different, so I'll try not to like make this 10 minutes and just make it brief. But for me, it started, I'm a native here of Southern California, but I was also, previous to getting into apparel, I lived in Japan. And so the Mecca, in my opinion, the Mecca of like the biggest appreciation of denim globally, right? Like they picked up all of our heritage here in America, like for what denim is and kind of like the appreciation and detail level of it. So when I lived there, like I had a big scope of apparel, and it always, like, denim always stuck out. And when I came back and I got back into apparel, I realized living here in LA, going to school, studying at FIDM, like how important denim was to LA in general. All of, you know, the apparel industry in Los Angeles is massive, but denim like has such a strong place here and a strong history here. And we like, you know, if you do denim, you do it out of LA and it's considered, you know, premium, right? So in my opinion, I was like, if I'm going to do this, I did a couple of studies prior to jumping into denim. And in my opinion, I was like, okay, if I'm going to do this, I started to connect the dots, like using the prior 6 years of life. And it felt like denim was just it for me. Like, it felt like it had the most idea for where I can like kind of dig into it, and I can learn so much. And then while learning so much about the past of denim, also like being thrown all of these different innovations and like all of these new technologies to like progress where denim came from and like what the idea of denim started as. So for me, I was like stuck between like grabbing the past and also like, wait, what's this new, like, what's going on over here? Like, what are we doing with, you know, these machines, or how are we progressing this portion of the industry? And it was game over from there. Like, and it also in my mind kind of allowed me to like always stay connected to Japan, which I absolutely love. And like their love for denim. And so I could always like kind of know I have a home there, if that makes sense.
Wow. I mean, denim is surrounding you, Japan, LA.
Right.
Those are meccas, no doubt, no doubt. Faith, can you elaborate maybe a little bit of what brought you into the denim field and kind of your story and how you're involved in denim? I mean, there's so many different categories. I mean, with fashion, it expands across so many different product categories. I mean, how did you end up in denim?
Well, for me, it was honestly a combination of different things. Firstly, because after like my experience with like a few internships and like, you know, part-time design stuff, it was mainly me figuring out that I really loved menswear. And I felt like, you know, one fabric that's predominant in menswear that we, you know, to all of our knowledge is denim. And so that was where I got my first interest in it. And then just like studying more and like doing more research, I figured out that in the fashion industry, I felt like the denim industry was more ahead in terms of sustainability, and sustainability is something that means a lot to me. The fact that I come from a third world country, I see it from like, you know, an environmental standpoint as well as a human standpoint. And that's where my love just kind of grew. I felt like they were more forward in the denim industry. And then also when I was a kid, I really loved science. And even though like I'm very creative, I felt like that's why I love denim, because it's like a mixture of the creative aspect, but there's also like science in it that people don't, you know,
Oh, for sure,
know about. Like, you know, you go into the lab and you have to like work with all these chemicals and stuff. And I was like, oh, like, I'm really digging this. Like, I was like, you know, it just was, I guess, more confirmation for me that I was on the right path, because like all my worlds are kind of syncing in one, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, actually. And it was very interesting that you brought up, you know, just where you come from, you know, thinking globally. A lot of denim manufacturing, as well as other product categories, are manufactured in places that may be considered a third world country. And, you know, a lot of denim manufacturing can be very corrosive or unsustainable to the environment. And we'll touch on this later. But it's really important to remember where these places are that are making the things that we wear and how the production that we're making is affecting those communities. So that's very, very interesting that you brought that up, and we'll dig into that a little bit further on. Rianne, how about yourself?
So for me, my very first internship was at Almo Denim, and that was what kind of was my first experience in fashion. And I think that always in the back of my head, I was thinking about denim and really interested by the process in it. But I think what really intrigues me about it is just its versatility, and how it's in so many different product categories and different levels of market, like from high end to mass market, and also in different geographical locations. Every place has their own take on it, like Dom mentioned, and there's just different unique elements I also think another thing that I really love about denim is that there's kind of a structure to it, and kind of a foundation that denim gives you, where, for example, like a 5-pocket jean, it's creativity built off of that structural piece.
Right.
So yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing, because it's like denim can, it just like you mentioned, it can be sort of this like starting canvas point, but it forces with how simple it can be to really think outside the box. Like you really have to dig into the raw materials you're using, how you're washing those garments, the fit, what construction is appropriate for the fabrication you picked. Like there's so many different things, trim, packaging, marketing, telling a story, sustainability, like all these different things that start with such a simple, kind of humble beginning, no? So
Exactly,
that's very cool. Erin, do you mind giving us some insight as well?
Yeah, so I grew up in a small town in Wisconsin. Now I have to say it wasn't too far from Madison, Wisconsin, if you guys are familiar, but my dad had his own business and he did carpentry, and every single day he wore a pair of Wrangler Lee or Land's End jeans. And so what I got to see over time growing up is basically those jeans wear and tear, the marks that he got from paint and stucco that he was getting on them, where they ripped, where they got destroyed. And I realized that I was absolutely just fascinated by this process of aging in terms of denim. And so when I did my senior, I guess, my thesis for my undergrad at Madison, I focused on indigo and wovens and denim for that. And that was what I was really passionate about. But when I graduated, I ended up getting an internship in cut and sew knits. And I was like, this is great. You know, I have an internship, I'm doing a job. And while it was in design, I realized after a couple of years that it wasn't what was driving me or what was motivating me. And I realized I needed to make a change. And so I happened to find this program and I was like, why am I not doing denim? Like this has surrounded my entire life. And it is what I'm passionate about. Especially, Faith mentioned this too, but the sustainability aspect of denim, I can't get over. It's so intertwined in what we all do in our jobs and in this particular category.
Right.
And I feel like you can't talk about sustainability, or you can't not talk about sustainability when you're talking about denim. And that's truly fascinating to me because we are on such a turning point right now in industry when it comes to that. And I'm just really excited to see where it goes. So
yeah, absolutely. I mean, you know, for me, that is a very interesting point because denim, like I mentioned a little bit ago, it can be very harmful to the environment if we don't pay attention. There's so much that goes into, you know, chemical wastage and, you know, what's happening on the fabric level, fabric finishing, water consumption, health for employees, and just as an industry in general, how do we buy better from factories? How do we keep inventory levels low? Like there's just so many different ways to attack sustainability. And because denim is so intense with how it can affect the environment, I find that denim is the category where the most exciting sustainable innovation is happening out of any other product category. And, you know, it's easy to kind of say, well, you know, sometimes I grappled with the idea, you know, should I be in this industry? You know, it is harming the environment in some ways and it could be better. It's not there yet. Should I partake in this? Should I add to it? But it's really going to take people like us all to stay in it who do care in order to make that change. Right? Because if the people who don't want to make the change just stay and we all leave because of our moral obligation, then nothing will ever change. So we have to stick it through. But it's exciting because we stay on the front lines. So you know, we're kind of the first to see, you know, what is Gino Lagia doing? What are these fabric mills doing that are so exciting? What about these chemical suppliers? So that's amazing. I really agree with that as well. I want to just kind of open this to whoever wants to answer. What was like that one thing that surprised you going into learning about denim or working in the denim industry, it was like, wow, I had no idea this went into making denim. Any of you guys can answer.
I think it was the actual construction of the fabric itself, because I remember the first week of the denim program, in one of the classes, we had to go in, and then, you know, they started, you know, basic introduction, like, okay, so this is denim, but it's not just denim. It's a 3x1, there's a 2x1, there's a left-hand twill, a right-hand twill. And in my mind, I was like, this is jargon. Like, it felt like a different type of language being spoken. And I was just like, you've got to be kidding me. Like, I think that was the biggest shock for me. And it was like, oh my gosh, like, okay, does it get more complicated than this? Do I leave now? Do I stay? Like, is it going to get harder? And I guess it was really a challenge for me because a lot of people don't know. And even like nowadays, when I have conversations with my friends, like my family members that know absolutely nothing about denim, it's like, they just think like it just comes like that. They don't, like, you know, like they don't know, like, oh, like it's raw, like this and that. And it's like, I was also of that same mindset prior to going into the program. So it was just like, you know, I guess like a wake up call kind of thing. So definitely, I think learning about the actual structure of the fabric definitely was like the most shocking thing to me.
Right, I agree. It's just an endless amount of, you know, subtleties when it comes to it, especially now. I mean, every fabric mill is doing something weird and crazy in terms of technology. It's just like every day it's like, what are you doing? Right. Like, I didn't know you could do that.
Exactly.
Anyone else would like to answer that question?
I can talk to, I think the biggest thing for me was realizing how many pairs of like hands touch one garment. I don't think like zero, like on the consumer end, like I don't think that translates well, like to how many, like really understanding like how many people from like starting from the fabric, like what it takes to like take the fabric through and like start the development of fabric, and then from taking the fabric, whether, you know, from cut, sew, and then going into someone who's working through wash and laundry, and how like meticulous these different, you know, whether it be laser, and how meticulous like everyone's job, like how important it is that everyone who touches that fabric has like an equally important job, all the way through to like packaging and like putting it where, you know, in the consumer's hands. Like just in general, I think it's like, you know, so many hands touch the garment. And I think in my idea of like clothing and apparel in general, I was like, you know, you have fabric, one person sews it on a smaller scale, and then, you know, and then it goes into the stores. And but with denim, because we have so many like components of bringing a denim jean to life, like it still, even to this day, I was just walking through a factory the other day and I was like, I still get mind blown, like how many people are touching one garment and like one denim jean. And it just makes it like that much more special, in my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that's like one of the biggest misconceptions. There's a lot of things happening, right? Like we all know that creating more automation, but even still, everything is so manual, from, like you mentioned, getting the fabric, doing the shrinkage test, applying that shrinkage to a pattern that's appropriate for that particular wash. But then, you know, going through the process, somebody sews it, they have to make sure they're on point with the sewing, and then that goes to another person who's going to do the dry process, which is, you know, hand sanding or adding potassium permanganate, and then someone's going to throw it in the washer, then someone's going to destroy it. I mean, it just goes on and on and on. It's so manual. And so it's very common. I don't know for any of the attendees watching, but you may even see small inconsistencies when you go into a denim store or a denim brand you're shopping. You might find a stack of one particular style, one particular wash, and there'll be subtleties from garment to. And I think a lot of us in the denim industry have learned to appreciate those subtleties. Whereas before, if you're in a different product category like knits or sweaters, those imperfections are not something you want. Whereas in denim, it's so manual that you have these beautiful sort of human imperfections that come through. in a very, very cool way. Erin, Rianne, you'd like to kind of talk to some of those surprising things like, what? That happens in denim?
I could, oh, go ahead,
There
Ray.
you go.
Okay. So one thing that I've found quite interesting, I guess, centered back around sustainability, a lot of companies right now are going after whether it's a biodegradable jean. A lot of companies have signed the Ellen MacArthur Jeans Redesign Pledge. And I think that's really awesome. But I think what a lot of people don't realize is actually how hard it is. And I didn't know this myself, like how hard it is to actually make a jean biodegradable and what the difference is between biodegradable, degradable, compostable, because those things aren't the same. And it's very hard right now in our current system in terms of like chemical and mechanical recycling to actually be set up in order to biodegrade a jean, because that would assume that we have all the proper conditions to actually do that. And the likelihood that after our consumer purchases that jean and that jean ends up, you know, at the end of its life, you can't use it anymore, that consumer is going to actually know and is educated enough on the topic to know what to do with it. And I think there's just so many nuances in terms of educating our consumer on sustainability and what biodegradability might mean for denim and how that relates back to the product and all the components and materials that we actually use. Because it's one thing if the fabric is biodegradable or compostable, but what about all the trims? What about your inner lining? What about your pocket bags? What about the sewing thread? Because a lot of times if the sewing thread isn't, you know, up to testing standards, well, then your jean's going to fail. And so what's more important? Quality, like durability, or having that jean completely biodegrade at the end of its life cycle? And I think that's a really open-ended question, but that's something I did not know. I did not know how many questions you can ask yourself and your friends in industry about the difficulties of this topic, but it truly fascinates me, and I'm going to make it my goal in my career to figure this out.
I love that. I love that. I mean, it's so challenging. I feel like the more questions we ask, the more like roadblocks come. No, it's sort of like, okay, like how can we make this happen? Oh, there are these countless infinite problems that we're gonna come across. But we just gotta, you know, the thing is that I think a lot of people, you know, forget that you don't just instantly become like fully sustainable and like overnight you're like, oh, I'm a fully sustainable person in my lifestyle or as a brand. It really takes you starting somewhere, you know, just like all of us starting in you know, FIDM. You know, we started in something that, you know, we knew we wanted to do, and there's thousands of problems, but of like things that we could talk ourselves out of, but we did it and we just kept moving forward, and here we are today. So it's the same thing. You have to start somewhere with sustainability, and, you know, where we are today, especially here at Guess, is not the end of the road for us. You know, we have so much more work to do, but we are making those steps forward. And that's the thing, is that, you know, you can't stay still. You have to grow with the industry. You have to, most importantly, especially us, if we're working with brands, we really have to continue to put pressure. You know, we have our own things that as a brand, we need to make sure we push, you know, all of us here in this panel, but we also have to push that demand onto our suppliers, because if we don't demand it, then, you know, it's not to say it wouldn't happen, but the more that like the Citizen, the Guesses, the Levi's, whoever are demanding that the fabric mills show this type of product, that the factories have this type of equipment, that they're changing out their water treatment, all these different things, that's when they're gonna really start kicking into gear, because I mean, for them, it can mean business. If loss of business, if we say this is where we are as a company, this is where we stand, and who we work with go forward need to abide by these standards, you know, it leaves those suppliers in a situation where it's like, okay, let's start making those changes because, you know, not only do we believe in it, but we also want to maintain these relationships with guests or citizens from, you know, humanity or whoever it is that they're working with. So it's super important that we pass that demand on. I mean, even now I see how it's changed because every fabric mill, they come and they say, man, everybody's asking for this type of fiber. They're asking for this waterless type of indigo dye on the fabric. They're asking for this. And now the saturation has increased. So that passion, that burn you have is good, Aaron. Keep it. Definitely. Rianne, how about yourself?
Well, actually, Aaron's comments about durability versus being sustainable had me thinking kind of in this program, what I learned really was kind of the double-edged sword of sustainability and kind of how there's not just one answer. I think that was something that was kind of surprising to me, was that I always thought kind of it's either you're sustainable or you're not. You're choosing which one you want to be, but it's really not that way. Like
Right.
there's so many different areas, for example, where say you choose organic cotton or some sort of regenerative form of farming because you think that's the more sustainable option, which it could be, but then think about all of the water you're going to be using for that, which
Exactly.
is counter your sustainable goal. Or think about like, if you find the most sustainable fabric in the world, but it's produced in China, then what about the emissions to fly it from China to the US? Is that worth it? It's kind of like you really have to play or balance what your sustainability goals are, because a lot of time your positive sustainability goals, not that they're negating them, but there are other things that you have to think about. So
Right.
that's one of the
Right.
things that really had me thinking in the program.
No, absolutely. It's honestly something that I battle every day. It's like, you know, and another aspect of it is like, what if all the raw materials going into making this super sustainable thing is crazy expensive, and now what you have to price that product at is at a unattainable price point, or at a price point that's not going to make enough impact, right? It's like,
Yeah.
at Guess, for instance, I'm always thinking, well, there's different price levels that we have and different brands within Guess that I manage the product for. And there's some at higher price points than others. But am I really making an impact if we are only developing sort of top door, limited quantity, you know, sort of product that not everybody's going to be able to buy, not the average person in the United States is going to be able to buy, or just generally globally, you know, at a more obtainable price point that opens the door for a lot more people to buy into? Maybe that's where the more impact is going to happen, because more people are buying into better made products. So there's also that aspect of it, you know, amongst all those other things with where is the fabric coming from, you know, what sort of wash processes are you using, and how is that offsetting some of the other challenges of how that product is designed. Those are really good things. So thank you guys for answering that question, because I think it's always fascinating, because everybody I meet, everybody is like, well, you just, you know, you kind of just sew the pant and then, you know, you just kind of like print it and then it's done. Like, no, it's so complicated. So, and all of that, it really encompasses a lot of the complexities with denim. How about, you know, I'm really interested in kind of how FIDM and this different studies that you guys have done, how you feel that it will prepare you for future opportunities, or how it's prepared you for things that are applicable now that you're dealing with. You know, did it provide you different context than you normally wouldn't have had if you know, came in just generally learning product development in a different category and then gone into denim? Can you talk about some of those kind of key learnings that you had from FIDM and how you're able to apply them in your day-to-day? Or, you know, for instance, Rianne, Faith, and Aaron, even we worked on this project together. how some of the things that you learned, you were able to apply there or take it further. And Dom, how do you take some of those learnings into your, day-to-day currently with your role? And that's also, anybody go ahead and jump at that. Go ahead, Dom.
I'll start. I'm trying to see I can't see if someone's gonna jump in. So for me, while I was there, like over the course of the few different programs that I went through, of course, the most relatable, right, and the most program that translates the most for me is going to be denim. But I think starting out when I showed up to FIDM and I did apparel industry management, and then I went into IMPD and then kind of like worked my way through to denim. I think from my overall experience at FIDM, it was mostly for me like getting that general idea of what apparel is like. In my mind, it was like, there's a couple people, they create something, it's sewn and then it's, it's put into the stores, but it's so much bigger than that. Like I had zero idea. Like here I am going into FIDM, like I had this much knowledge about apparel, but I liked clothes, like, right? Like I was very naive to the idea. Like I like this, I see like, I was fueled off various people's passions regarding like clothing, and that I used that kind of like at FIDM, and like that translated through while I was there, like starting in apparel industry management, getting into IMPD and like realizing like how global fashion and apparel is, and then taking that and like bringing that back home with the denim program, coming back home to LA type of thing. But for me, it all kind of made sense in various different, everyday activities, whatever I'm doing. It's like I learned so much at FIDM that it's almost like subconsciously it helps me in the back of my mind. I may not be doing, or working on tariff codes, for instance. I may not be working with tariff codes, but when I'm working with my fabric team and I'm asking questions and I'm like, what's the content of this? Like, I know that there's a tariff. I know there's a duty behind that fabric. Like I know when something's coming in, and those little things like in the back of my mind, like that I'm bringing towards the forefront of the conversation, so I can get to my like, okay, what are we paying for this? Like a lot faster. How much is this going to be? It just kind of all makes more sense on that end. And those are things that I never would have thought I would have used. Like I was like, I'm going into development. Like I don't need this huge tariff manual that we studied inside and out. I was like I don't need that. Searching the government site, for these tariffs, but it's something that I catch myself, and I'm shocked even with myself when I'm working with various departments, and I'm like, oh, okay, like. Can you just, give me the duty on this so I can have a more accurate, it helps me do my job a lot better. And again, there's so many different things. That was just one example along the way that, I learned. I was like, this is wild. I'm glad I learned it. It was I guess like kind of a task to kind of pick it up and retain that information. And then I catch myself digging into the back of my, mind throughout the day, like, what is this? And it just helps me in my everyday, which is like, to me, I get home and I'm like, dang, I'm really glad that like I went through the process of like digging into those manuals and like running through things that I never thought I would have to use.
Right.
But
yeah, that's amazing. I mean, because also, what you just touched on, that one example is an example that is perfect, because we need to, while we're working in a company, you're going to be working with different departments. There's going to be a production department. There's going to be a designer if you're in product development. If you're a designer, you're going to be working with product development and merchandising and different buyers who have different demands. But as a product developer, you're working really with everyone, and you're sort of at the center of it all. And so understanding the different functions and the different expectations and needs of different departments can better inform your decisions as a product developer in order to do your job more efficiently in the way that serves all these different departments the best way: production, design, merchandising, buying, even the factory, being able to sort of work with all of these different elements and bring them together in a way that is really efficient across the board. It's really challenging, but that's what product development is. And that's, I think, what the fun is, because you're taking something so creative and you are building a lot of strategy and sort of like best practices behind how to get that garment developed and set up for production. So it's very left and right brained, and I love that. So, and a lot of that I also learned through IMPD when I was in the program. Anybody else want to touch on this subject as well?
Yeah, going off of, I guess, Dom, and comparing like, or just even touching base on the fact of going through IMPD as well as denim. I think for all of us here, like going through an advanced study program at FIDM, we are cognizant of the fact that it's like you're in class, but not really in class, because that was like the beauty for me for like the advanced study programs. It's like, it's so hands-on and very industry focused to the point where you literally feel like it's work more than even school sometimes, based on like the industry events you go to, the people that you're meeting, networking, all of that stuff. It's so real life focused. And I feel like you don't really get that in a lot of places. So it's really awesome because it gives you somewhat of a safe haven, as well as like, that's like your introduction to the industry, but like you can make the mistakes that you want to make here before actually launching into the industry. I feel like it's very paramount, and I feel like it really did help. That's where I think the upper like edge comes into play. And also going off of the fact of it being very industry focused, it's like real life in the sense of you get to tap into every aspect of it. So even though like with IMPD, it's international manufacturing product development, we still did design, we still did logistics, we still did production. And then in the business of denim as well, like there was design as well, product development, like so many different aspects of the industry. And then for someone that's like, you know, still trying to figure out like what exactly is my main like area of focus, you get to be exposed to all aspects where you like figure out what your strengths and your weaknesses are, and just even what your preferences are. And then like, you know, for me, it's like, okay, yeah, like even though I did IMPD, which is like, you know, you might think, oh yeah, it's just product development. I figured out that I loved production, you know? So it's like, it really helps you, I feel, even like come to terms with like what your individual preference for the industry is. And I think it's really, really good, instead of like going into the industry and then like changing a job and like, I'm not satisfied in this and that and that. So I just feel like that really is where the upper edge was for me. So
yeah, for sure. I definitely, that IMPD experience, I can attest to as well, gave a lot of real world situations. So when I started the industry, I was sort of like, okay, I see what's going on. Whereas before I may have entered in like deer in headlights, sort of, you know, kind of, you know, what's going on. But even if you don't do IMPD, like, you know, internships are amazing for even that's, you know, for what you learn in that context, I should say. So, you know, I encourage very much internships. IMPD we've all done it, I think, which was night and day difference in terms of context in the industry. Erin, what would you recommend for someone looking to start out in the denim industry? Like, you know, I'm interested, maybe, you know, I'm sort of like, I'm thinking about this industry, denim piques my interest. Where do I start? What do I look at? Where should I research? What should I do in terms of trying to find out more about sustainability? Where do I go? I need help.
It's funny you ask this, because with some of so working on denim at a larger company, there's obviously a lot of other ready-to-wear designers that work on different categories. And sometimes it's beneficial for them to know a little bit about denim if they're working on like washed product, for example. So I've been compiling this, like, I call it the denim things email that I'll like send to our team members. And it's basically a compilation of what you're speaking of good resources, things to look at. And I will describe some of those, so that's more helpful. But I think a great place to start is, for one, looking at all the premium brands that are out there for denim, like literally what is their product assortment? What types of fabrics are they using? Are they listing mills that they're utilizing on their website? Because then that's really helpful, because you can start to piece together where people do their production and what denim mills that they work with. Another great thing is Amy Leverton's Denim Dudes. So she runs an Instagram account, and she's always at Kingpins, which is a large denim trade show that happens about twice a year. It's been virtual for the last couple seasons. But familiarizing yourself with that, she does amazing imagery, and she also does trend reports every season that are like these massive compilations of the most beautiful denim trend you'll ever see. She just captures insane messages, and it's beautiful. I would also suggest like looking into, Eriksen, you had mentioned this before, like some of the like chemical and wash suppliers. So like looking at Genealogia's website, looking at Tonello's website, researching the type of machinery that they're using. If you don't know what it is, looking that up. I spent so much time going down weird rabbit holes in terms of like chemical suppliers and machinery and sustainability. Like even chemical suppliers, like there's Near Chemica and Rudolph and all these things that you would never even know existed until you start researching what their product offerings are, and why they're doing it and what they're putting out to market. Because you guys were talking about this earlier, but it may not seem connected, but the chemicals that you use, like it comes full circle back to like what machinery that you're using, like what a wash equipment you're using. Are those chemicals even okay for the fabric that you're developing on? Is your fabric laser friendly? What types of lasers are you using? Are you using a laser booster, which would be another chemical that would be in addition to that? So I think it's good to just like go down rabbit holes. That is the main thing. Like build on your research and be curious, because that's like what's gonna push you farther than anything else.
For sure, absolutely. The rabbit hole. Is that a YouTube rabbit hole? just like the next video just keeps going. You wake up in the middle of the night.
No, it's exactly like that. Yes.
Rianne, I wanted to ask you, sort of, kind of piggybacking off of that, especially, there's a lot of people here who like maybe thinking like, what the heck is a laser machine in its relation to denim, and like why does there need to be a laser friendly fabric, and what does that all mean? Can you kind of like touch on that and maybe speak to like what was the most interesting thing that you like, technology that you found in sustainability? And then after that question, we'll have like a quick, like, everybody shout out your favorite denim company. It better be Guess. And then and then I'll answer maybe like one of the two of the questions that came through, and then we'll turn it over. So Rianne, go ahead.
Yeah, with sustainability and technology, it's definitely improving so much, and I feel like there's constantly something new coming out, so it's definitely something to keep up with. But I just remember when I was working at AOLA Jeans, my boss showed me a pair that he had lasered a few years ago, and they looked so bad. And he was trying to show me the difference between, or I guess the progress that they've made in terms of laser technology, which I think is really awesome. And I think that this also goes back to your comment before about how the denim leaders are the ones leading the sustainable movement. And I think that's really important, because I think that as denim is one of the most pollutant industries, I think that those leaders in past decades have kind of recognized that they created such horrible things for the environment, if I have to say. But they're also the ones that are now taking charge of it and are the leaders and and collaborating with like Gina Logia and all these other different type of brands like Tonello, all of those.
Yeah.
So I guess after that, my point is just that that it's really important to keep up with, because I think it's something that will only get better and better and better. And it's just a really cool time to be entering the industry right now. And I think that also a lot of brands are looking to the younger generations who are incoming now and working now, to follow along. And
Yeah.
along with on the technological side, also on the design side to support that.
Yeah, I mean, you know, coming into the fashion industry, let alone the fashion industry, but coming into denim industry, I never thought I like would. Sometimes I sit at home and I'm like, wow, the things that I see in factories, sometimes people would be like so stunned of how like futuristic it is. You know, I was visiting, there's a fully sustainable factory that just opened here in LA, and some of the things that they have, you know, in that facility is just like, what? I did what? That's intense. That's intense. I can't believe it. So it's so fascinating to be in such, and you kind of mentioned it earlier too, Faith, is like this combination of creativity and science and bringing all this chaotic things together in a very interesting way, like mixing those two worlds together, science and creativity. Like, what? I'm gonna do that in fashion, but that's what denim is all about every day. It's science in every level, and it's so fascinating because of that. Okay, so really quick, what denim brand is really kind of like you guys are eyeing right now? That's sort of like, whoa, that what they're doing, I really stand behind. That's cool. I like what they're doing. It could be for whatever reason. It doesn't have to just be sustainability.
Silver Lake for me.
Silver Lake.
Yeah. Because they're using hemp, and I find it really interesting because I guess everybody's just very, you know, keen on organic cotton and just everything that revolves around cotton, but hemp is another fiber that I feel, you know, we know it's natural, and I believe it uses less water than cotton does. So I'm trying to see how they're going to develop it in a way that it'll be comfortable in terms of wearing. I personally haven't purchased one of their denim yet, but I will, because I really want to see how it feels.
Nice. Dom, what about yourself?
I'm gonna plug and say A Goldie, because you know I love, you know, it's A Goldie. I think for me, denim is, again, going back to that quick like Japanese reference, like the way that when I lived in Japan, the appreciation for vintage denim and authentic denim is something that's like near and dear to me. And then on the flip side of that, that's my appreciation behind the A Goldie comment. And then on the flip side of that, one of my favorite denim brands, it's not just a denim brand, again, jumping back to Japan, is Capital. And it's just because of like how they push, like
that was gonna be my answer.
Yeah. How they push, like just how they use the fabric. Like it's like they're always continuing to push the bar. Like they're always challenging themselves creatively and using denim fabric in shapes and silhouettes. And I guess there's a little bit of design, like a design love there. And then I'm biased because, you know, I think that they're always trying to push the bar, and it may not be like the biggest numbers of, you know, it's not everywhere, and sometimes it's difficult to find, but I think that's what makes the pieces so special. Is that like it's something where there's a lot of thought, there's a lot of detail involved, and there's a lot of like, again, a lot of hands and a lot of minds going into play to make this beautiful piece of clothing and bring it to life using them.
Absolutely, man. That's a good answer. Erin, how about yourself?
I think I would say Mud Jeans out of Amsterdam. They do just so much work with sustainability, and I feel like, and circular design especially, like I feel like they're really pioneering the path forward in terms of like the most innovation with circular design. I think they just released like a life cycle assessment of their products and showed like the graphs and data behind even down to land usage per gene. So I always find that stuff fascinating. And then also Lee and Wrangler, of course, I think that they're starting to work on certifying with Cradle to Cradle for that. So that's going to be super, super cool since they're like a larger company going after that.
For sure. Absolutely. Rianne, how about yourself?
Aesthetically, I think one of my favorites is Capital, but in terms of sustainable philosophy, I'd have to say Atelier and Repairs, and like Redone, just because I truly think that the key to sustainability is through like a conscious moderation and just having a balance of everything. And I think that they do a great job of trying to prolong their life cycle, their product life cycles. And I think that's sometimes more valuable than creating, or I think it is more valuable than creating a brand new product.
Absolutely. I agree with that 100%. Yeah. I mean, for me, you guys already know my answer already. I love them. They're so great. They're so great. I love what they do with silhouettes. They're so weird. They don't care to be anybody. They're themselves, you know. They're not trying to borrow any sort of inspiration from anyone. They do what they want and they do it great and they execute it on point. I love that attitude. So I'm gonna answer some of these questions in the Q&A dropped. Maybe some of you guys help me out. But the first one here, let's see. I have an idea to start a denim line featuring stretch denim for flight attendants. How do you suggest I get started? I think where you start is doing market research on sort of who your competitors would be and start kind of framing what that market is all about if you don't know what goes into that market. You know, what are the main, you know, taking a look at the different airlines and saying, okay, who is supplying those uniforms and what are their costs? If you can find that information, and then you can start digging into, okay, if I'm gonna take this into a denim approach, what are some of the things that are important for those flight attendants during a flight, during a long flight too, you know? I mean, those flights get stuffy, they're quite uncomfortable. Even just us as a person in like comfortable loungewear on the plane, it's already uncomfortable. So, you know, really starting with the market research first, trying to figure out, you know, your competition is truly what it is. Normally you would, you know, when you are trying to develop a brand, you're going to also think about who your customer is and what that lifestyle is all about. But you already know what that is, you know, it's the flight attendant. But you got to kind of think about, well, what are some of the things that are important to them? And that would kind of help you guide the development of that idea, so to speak. But that's, you know, I've never tried to start a flight attendant denim line, so I'm not the expert, but that's where I would start. But some things that might be important for you is thinking about performance. You know, you're thinking of stretch, so inherently you're gonna have to think about the recovery performance of that fabric. So it stretches, you wanna make sure that it goes back to its original state, and you wanna make sure that the growth of the fabric is low because, you know, primarily denim is composed by a lot of natural fibers that just naturally grow and don't have a lot of retentive properties. So you're gonna need fiber composition that supports retention. And maybe you're gonna need some fiber composition that also keeps the flight attendant cool, that moderates temperature, and there's definitely that technology in the industry today. Here's another question. Can we get a list of the research, AKA the rabbit hole, that Aaron just shared with us, please? I don't know how we can make that happen, but I also want to see that list, Aaron.
I'm sure I can work with Amanda and get that sent out. I'm happy to do so, honestly. Education, that's my thing. I will provide as necessary.
There's going to be a link that says Indigo Theory 101.
Join me on the rabbit hole journey.
And then I saw another question in the chat. One second. What have you made your definitive purpose in the denim industry, and how has that purpose changed as you've gained more knowledge of the industry and yourself? It's a good one. Who wants to take that one?
Let me try.
Serving up the pitch. There you go. Knock it out.
Okay, definitive purpose. Honestly, for me, this has been a long-term goal of mine, and Erin and Rand know because I talk about it a lot in class. I want to start a denim mill, like the first one in West Africa. It's been a long-term goal of mine, and it relates to myself because I've always I just always have told myself that, you know, whatever aspect of life I get into, I would always make sure that it would have a positive effect on my people, would have a positive effect of like where I come from. So I guess like discovering like what my purpose is specifically to denim had to do with obviously like where I come from. And as I was doing like a lot of research and like figuring out like, you know, stuff about the denim industry, you know, I saw, okay, we definitely need a place that has like a lot of cotton, because even though, like I said, like when I was talking about Silver Lake prior and like how they're using hemp, it's like, I don't know how good that's working for them. That's why I'm still like keeping an eye on them to see. But as of right now, we all know that it's predominantly cotton. So I know that, you know, where I come from, like Nigeria has like a lot of cotton there. And then, you know, we're highly populated, lack of employment. And I know that, you know, creating something of that manner would help, you know, with the unemployment rates, it would help with the GDP per capita. So stuff like that. It's like, there's really a lot you could do with fashion in general, but denim specifically, because I just feel like we're already headed towards a more sustainable world, a more like conscious world, a world that just cares more about people, I feel. So I just know that denim is the best route for it. So
that's inspiring.
I love that.
See that happen.
Yeah.
That's really great.
Yeah.
I think we all want to cheer that on.
Thank you.
I want to see that happen.
For sure.
That's really great. I don't think I have, honestly, at this point, the one definitive purpose. There's a lot of things that are important to me, you know, as it relates to how denim is affecting the world and ways that we can change the industry. But a definitive purpose for me maybe is a purpose that is actually constantly evolving, because new things, new opportunities are always landing on our lap. And there's new ways to reinvent processes. There's new ways to rethink things and build things up from the ground again. And where I am today isn't necessarily where my life's work will end. And I think this is a stepping stone in the right direction. And I think, you know, we all have to remember that there, you know, while we may be identifying some things that we want to achieve, like Faith, which is this great, amazing project that she knows needs to happen, and she has the things in place that are going to get her there. But a lot of us, maybe not, we don't have that yet. Or maybe we won't, but what we can do is at least get in those stepping stones that are going to bring us to better opportunities and cooler things where we can make bigger impacts on whatever thing we're involved in. And some of us just want to create, and that's cool too. Some of us just want to put cool things out in the world, and, you know, doing it in a responsible way is definitely the right way to do it. We got to keep that in mind. But, you know, there's nothing wrong with also just saying, hey, like, I just am creative. I want to see people wearing something that I created. I mean, that alone is sort of, you know, what some people enjoy about making music or directing films. They want somebody to watch it. They want to see it impact someone. I mean, that's, you know, I think that's really something to remember. And with that, I will give it on over to Amanda to close us out.
Eriksen, thank you. Aaron, Faith, Ray, Dom, always a pleasure to see you guys. It was a pleasure to have you here. It's amazing to see what you're doing in the industry and how you're impacting the industry. So I really, really thank you guys. Hopefully we'll see each other again in person soon. But on behalf of FIDM, I want to thank you. And if anyone in the audience has more questions on the Business of Denim program, obviously these students have been in the industry and gone through the program, or that rabbit hole list that Erin has that she was going to put together. We do all that in the program. So keep that in mind. But if anyone has any questions, please reach out to us at FIDM to answer any questions you might have. And there's some events that we have coming up, and we would love for you to join us in some of the additional events that are coming up. It should be showing you on the screen now. Virtual events, we have additional online lecture series. The next one's June the 8th at 12 o'clock noon. And then we have 3 days of fashion coming in June. So any information you need, please reach out to us, and we'd be more than happy to answer questions that you might have. Everybody have a great night. Have a great evening, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you.